that whenever we put back, whatever we put back will be appreciated versus what's there now. Privet said the plans call for tearing down all but the east wall. He said he hopes demolition can begin next month. Pretty much we'll end up with a brand new building there when it's all done, except for the east wall, Privet said. Maine Johnson, a spokesman for the city of Fayetteville, said the city has had a preliminary meeting with Privet and more are planned. Privet acknowledged that the project could be slow to completion. Building codes, setback requirements, and regulations governing historic landmarks must all be followed. Even the sign and its misspelling of Haymont could become continuous because of its status as a landmark. Privet said he'd love to save the curved sign, restoring it letter by letter if he has to. He's not sure about the entire sign though, which reads Grill and Steakhouse in smaller letters below Haymont. That will likely become a matter for the city's historic research commission to grapple over, Privet said. Retailers next to the property would love to see a return of the restaurant and the potential customers it would draw their way. But anything they say would be better than the boarded up building that's there now. We would definitely love to see something, said Sharon Gregory, an employee of Betty Kelly's gift shop across Fort Bragg Road.
Okay, we're going to read our station identification. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We are broadcasting from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our service. For making a charitable donation, please keep the SCNCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number at 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts today are
Marie
and Val, and we're proud to serve you today. Let's see, Cumberland County, did you finish that article? Okay, yeah, all right. Cumberland County School Board election filings begin. Okay. The summer-long elections filing period continues on Friday with the opening day for Cumberland County School Board candidates to put their names on the ballot. This is the third election filing period of the summer and the fourth this year. A signal that the ballot will be long in November. Earlier this summer, a filing period was held for judicial candidates. The filing period for Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District supervisors concluded at noon on Friday. Candidates for other elected offices filed in February. Incumbent boards of education members Greg West of Fayetteville filed for re-election on Friday afternoon. So far, he was the only Cumberland County school board candidate to file. West was one of the county's third at-large board of education seats. The other two seats are held by Julie Musgrave of Fayetteville and Randy Tatum of Eastover. I'm excited to continue the work with my fellow board members to lead the district in a positive direction, West said in an email. Retired teacher Joseph Soares was previously said he intended to run this year. Blue Moon, Blue Wave. North Carolina is having what political insiders call a blue moon election cycle, an election without a top-level statewide race to drive turnout. Not only is it a non-presidential year, but there is no statewide elections by the governor or U.S. Senate to attract people's attention. The statewide race for North Carolina Supreme Court, where one seat is on the ballot, the State Court of Appeals, 3 seats up for re-election, are important but generally not drive turnout. However, 6 proposed amendments to the North Carolina's Constitution could peak up turnout. In particular, one to create a voter photo ID mandate, and another to establish a constitutional right to hunt and fish could attract voters' attention. Republican voters generally turn out more than Democratic voters in off-year elections such as this one. But the Democratic Party has been energized by its intensive opposition to Republican President Donald Trump. Republicans hope to turn our constitutional fears and anger into a blue wave of turnout and reduce, if not break, the Republican Party majority control in North Carolina legislature and among the state's U.S. Senate seats. Early polls in recent elections in other states have given the Democrats confidence. Contest race. In addition to a state Supreme Court justice and the 3 courts of appeal judges, voters will be selecting members of the U.S. Congress, members of the North Carolina House, members of the North Carolina Senate, county commissioners, sheriffs, registrars of deeds, members of local board of education, superior court judges, district court judges, clerk of court, superior court, district attorneys, local soil and water conservation district supervisors. Constitutional amendments. Here are the 6 amendments proposed for the state's constitution. Voter photo ID. Voters would be required to present identification with their picture on it in order to vote, but exceptions would be allowed. Maximum income tax of 7%. The Constitution says North Carolina may not levy an income tax higher than 10%. This amendment would change that cap. Victims' Right Amendment. The Constitution has a selection that gives crime victims a number of rights. This amendment, known as Merrill's Law, would expand those rights. It's named after a woman who was murdered in California. There are efforts to implement Merrill's Law throughout the country. Bipartisan State Board of Ethics and Election Enforcement. The government and legislators have been in a dispute over who gets to appoint the members of State Board of Elections. This amendment would give that power specifically to the lawmakers. It also would let the legislatures take from the governor the power to appoint people to hundreds of boards and commissions. These boards and commissions advise the government and make various political rules and decisions to implement and enforce state law. Right to hunt and fish. The Constitution would say that the people have a right to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife, but that right would be subject to law enacted by the legislature. The hunting and fishing rights would not affect laws, but prohibit trespassing that protects people's property rights or involve eminent domain. Merit selection of judges. Judges are elected, but if they leave office midterm, the governor appoints their replacement. The amendment would change the practice. The commission would evaluate and replace candidates and nominate at least 2 choices for the governor.
A moment of silence and solemn remembrance. For just a moment Thursday, we did something we've never done down here, where the giant 3-tier printing press may take a brief respite on weekends, but otherwise rolls 24 hours daily and seldom sleeps. Employees from all departments gathered in the courtyard not far from the publisher's office, where quietly they bowed their heads and silently prayed their prayers. No matter what, newspapers are families, Bob Gerber, our publisher, would say at 2:33 p.m. in a moment of silence. Observance as part of the Associated Press Media Editors in American Society of News Editors call for remembrance of 4 journalists and our advertising sales assistants gunned down on June the 28th at the Capital Gazette newspaper office in Annapolis, Maryland. That's true in Wilmington, Fayetteville, and everywhere I've been. There's just something about working in the media. Solemnly, the publisher called out the names of Robert Hassan, Gerald Fishman, John McNamara, Wendy Winters, and Rebecca Smith. They were the 5 victims in the Capital Gazette shootings. Gerber would say, although we needed no reminder, we just wanted to take a moment of meditation and prayer. That's just what we did at the precise hour of the week before, when law enforcement says Gerard Ramus, 38, angry and holding a grudge against the Capital Gazette newspaper over stories it had published about his continual harassment of a former high school classmate, took the lives of the 4 seasoned journalists and a young advertising representative. Ramus was arrested and charged with the murders. All Gates House-owned newspapers participated in the remembrance, as well as other corporative and family-owned publications across the country. The tragedy last Thursday at the Capital Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland. Jim Simon, president of the APME, and Alfredo Carbajo, president of the ASNE, jointly would say, tears at our hearts, tugs at our compassion, and calls forth our fears for the safety of all those on the front lines of truth, accountability, and journalistic pursuit. Hassan, 59, was an assistant director and a Sunday columnist for the Annapolis newspaper. Fishman, 61, was an editorial page editor. McNamara, 56, was a sports reporter. Winters, 65, was an editor and a community news reporter and columnist. Smith, 34, was an advertising sales assistant. A memorial service for Winters is scheduled for noon today in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Annapolis. According to the Baltimore Sun, a private graveside service for Fishman is scheduled for Sunday at Juden Memorial Gardens in Olney, Maryland, while a 7 p.m. memorial service is set for Smith in Dundalk, Maryland. A memorial service before McNamara is scheduled for 10 a.m. Tuesday at the University of Maryland College Park Chapel. A celebration of life was held for Hassan this past Monday at the Ivan Nature Center in Owens Mills, Maryland. They were newspaper people on the front lines of journalistic pursuits. They were us, and we were alone. Whitfield Street are them. Bill, and we here alone. Whitfield Street are them. Bill, thankful for your column this morning and the reflections of the importance of our local newspaper staff. The Reverend David Blackman, senior minister at Hay Street United Methodist Church, would write in an email about our June 30th column on the tragedy that has rippled throughout newspaper offices and newsrooms everywhere, to include this newspaper. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers for the Annapolis community. While Bob Gerber presided over our vigil for our fellow journalists, Rock Huzel, editor with the Capital Gazette, presided at the same hour Thursday in the newspaper makeshift newsroom, and where colleagues would light 5 candles in memory of Robert Hassan, Gerald Fishman, John McNamara, Wendy Winders, and Rebecca Smith. Gerber later again will remind us the Annapolis newspaper nightmare. It just stops you. He would say, you never think it can happen. In a Gazette story Friday about the emotional day and moment of silence in the Gazette newsroom, Jeanette Morgan is quoted as a longtime reader of the Annapolis newspaper. After so many years, she would say, you feel a connection to the writers, and often we to our readers. Thankful for your column, the good preacher will write, and the reflections on the importance of our local newspaper staff. Yes, be assured, and we a connection to those of you who read us.
Okay. Southview siblings share scholarly honors. And this is Hope Mills. Siblings Sava and Nisha Mall are 11 months apart, but their parents wanted them to start school together so that neither would be alone. You were too scared to go to school alone, so we made your sister go with you. Salva laughed, retelling the story he heard from his parents. Now, school is a place where they both thrived. The recent Southview High School graduate shares this year's Salutatorian Award for the second highest cumulative average among a class of nearly 400 students, finishing percentage points behind valedictorian Faith Royal. We didn't know we tried until our junior year, and that was unexpected, Nisha said. We both were very dedicated to school, and we wanted to do our best and continue to get all A's, and we just happened to tie. After finding out they shared the same GPA, the Malls decided to work together to stay at the top of their class. We were able to balance out our strengths and weaknesses. Salva said, instead of competing, they joined forces. But both wanted each other to succeed. So it's not as competitive, it's more working together, Nisha said. We don't compete because we know that he's still going to support me if I were to beat him, and I would support him if he were to beat me. It doesn't matter as long as we pushed ourselves to do our best. The value of education is important to the Malls. They came to America from India in 2009 and saw their father stabbed to find and saw their father scramble to find a job that would allow him to support his family. They also saw his fierce devotion and a never quitting attitude that inspired them to reach their goals. I know it was hard for them to come to a country they knew nothing of, and they didn't speak the language. So seeing them strive to give us everything we needed pushed me to also work and strive for a good career and a good future. Nisa said she'll begin her path to medical school at University of North Carolina this fall. She'll like to become a physician or a cardiologist. Salva would be very far away. He'll study mechanical engineering at won't be very far away. I think I said would. Won't be very far away. He'll study mechanical engineering at North Carolina State and hopes to have a hands-on role in building and creating for a car company someday. It was tough on us, but Nisa and I realized that we had to be good in academics so that financially we could be better off later on, he said. Nisa and Salva came to Hope Mills from India in August of 2010 after landing on American soil April 7, 2009 in New York. They spent a year in India, where their old neighborhood from India lives, before settling down here. When we first moved here, we didn't have much at all. My dad would always tell me, if you don't finish school with good grades, this is what you're going to have to deal with, Salva said. In their first year in North Carolina, Nisa and Salva, 9 and 10 at the time, only saw their father every few months because he was still living in India, working to obtain his commercial driver's license so that he could better support his family. They brought us to America and they gave us opportunities to succeed, and they always pushed us, Nisa said. That was very hard for them to leave everything behind because they wanted us to have a better future and to have more opportunities. So we worked hard because we knew they worked hard to be here. The pair was shy at first upon moving to Fayetteville, not taking to the locals very much because they weren't confident in their English. But it only took a couple of months for them to get comfortable and start making friends. Salva more outgoing than I am. I'm very reserved and shy. I think it helps to have him in my class because it pushes me to make new friends. Lisa said. That they have the same group of friends. They share playlists and tell each other about cool new pop culture discoveries. When Saba played travel soccer, he'd invite Nisa into the field to learn plays. They both represented Southview on the pitch for 4 years. They might be a little nervous when they move again, this time to the triangle, but not because they are insecure about communications. While plenty of freshman minds are flooded with thoughts of new dates and parties and ball games, Salva is determined to stay focused because he knows how hard his father has worked to put him in the position to succeed. My biggest concern is to not focus on social events as much as academics, because I know that if something goes wrong, then my parents are going to have to take care of it, he said. My family motivates me. Nisa, too, doesn't intend to let up heading into college. You can't expect the hard work to stop because you can't have everything without working for it. So you have to push through all the hard work, even though it's very difficult. Once you see what you achieve and know you're one step closer to your future, then it's definitely more rewarding because it's like I work for it. That's mine.
World War II paratrooper remains coming home. Willard Bud Jenkins was lost during one of World War II's most famous battles, and now after nearly 74 years, Jenkins is finally coming home. The Defense Prisoner of War Missing in Action Accounting Agency announced Friday that Jenkins' remains were identified Tuesday and that a future burial was being planned. A spokeswoman for the agency said Jenkins' family was notified of the discovery Thursday. Jenkins, originally from Pennsylvania, was declared missing in action on September 20th, 1944, the same day as the famed Wall River crossing during Operation Market Garden. A paratrooper with Company C, 307th Airborne Engineer Battalion, 82nd Airborne Division, Jenkins was among the hundreds of soldiers who attempted to cross the river near Nijmegen, Netherlands, in a fleet of small boats, all while facing withering enemy fire. According to historical reports, he operated a rudder of one of the boats and was wounded in the chest before falling overboard during one crossing. Because the area downstream of the river was controlled by enemy forces, a search could not be conducted, officials said. On Friday, the soldiers on the Fort Bragg praised the return of Jenkins' remains. The entire 82nd Airborne Division celebrates the identification and return of one of the World War II paratroopers who liberated Europe, said Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Boxino, a division spokesman. Bringing Willard Jenkins home and properly honoring him is important to us. Paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division commemorate the Wall River crossing each year on Fort Bragg with soldiers from the 307 Bridge Gauge Engineer Battalion, 3rd Bridge Gauge Combat Team, hosting a friendly competition at McKellar's Lake as a way to build East Spirit Day Corps, while also honoring the heroics of past paratroopers. With their fellow paratroopers cheering from the lake's edge, teams from each of the battalion's companies raced across the border amid stimulated artillery and machine gun fire. Last year, the competition also included a 2-mile run while carrying Zodiac boats overhead and a wreath laying at a memorial to the Well River crossing outside the 82nd Airborne Division War Memorial Museum on Arding Street. The river crossing was predicted in the popular 1977 movie A Bridge Too Far. The crossing, also involving paratroopers from the 3rd Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, came well into the 3rd day of heavy fighting on the banks of the river as Allied forces assaulted German lines in Netherlands and Germany. The paratroopers were ordered to take a bridge over the river from NASA forces in broad daylight. The first soldiers launched from the shore of the well just before 3 p.m. and were immediately sunk by the enemy forces on the opposite bank. Of 26 boats that were soon launched from the shore, 13 were returned. Of them, only 8 were able to make repeated trips across the deadly river. 3 engineers and 10 infantrymen traveled in each boat, and some engineers made repeated trips up to 5 each to ferry their fellow paratroopers to the German side of the river. When the battle ended, the paratroopers were victorious, having laid claim to the bridge at the cost of nearly 50 soldiers lost, including Jenkins, who was buried as an unknown at an American cemetery in Margareten, Netherlands. Officials with DPAA said the grave was maliciously cared for in the decades since the war's end. Jenkins is listed on the tablets of the missing at the Netherlands American Cemetery along with other missing soldiers from the war. Officials said a rosette will now be placed next to his name to indicate that he has been accounted for.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Blast injures 2 in Sampson's propane facility. Clinton investigators combined their through debris Friday, trying to determine what started a fire that injured 2 people at a Sampson County liquid propane gas facility off of US 701 about 5.5 miles north of Clinton. The fire at Rapid Exchange Commercial LP facility at 6280 Harborton Highway, which is US 701, was reported at 2 p.m. when 911 operators received a call of multiple explosions. Firefighters were released from the scene about 5:50 p.m., said Susan Holder, Public Information Officer for Sampson County and the Emergency Management Department. All affected roads were blocked open and residents who were evacuated were allowed to return home. The 2 who were injured were airlifted to U.S. J.C. Burn Center at Chapel Hill Hospital in Chapel Hill. Holder did not know their conditions, but said the injuries were not life-threatening. They have not been identified. A large fire was burning in the tank storage yard outside the main building where firefighters arrived, Holder said. The immediate threat of fire for the firefighters were keeping flames from the 2 30,000-gallon liquid propane tanks and 25,000 propane cylinders on the site, Holder said. The cylinders were 20-pounders, such as are used with many outdoor residential cooking grills. whether they were empty or contained propane was not clear. The threat of explosions from the massive tanks and cylinder prompted the evacuation for everyone within a 1-mile radius. Firefighters from earlier all of the county's fire departments battled the fire for about 2 hours, keeping it away from the woods as well as the propane tanks. One firefighter was treated at the scene and released for unspecific injury, Holder said. Investigators from the North Carolina Department of Labor and the State Bureau of Investigation are working with the Sampson County Fire Marshals to determine the cause of the fire. The Department of Labor responded to any commercial incidents like this, Holder says. Responding fire departments included Halls, Newton Grove, Vance, Crossing, Clinton, Piney Grove, Turkey, Heron, Sellenberg, and Clement. The Suttontown Rescue Squad was working with the Sampson County EMS, Holder said. The state regional hazmat team made up of Fayetteville firefighters responded as well. Propane is a colorless and odorless gas and that is highly flammable and can be damaging if inhaled, according to the okay, we're going to get our let's see, I'm sorry, this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We are broadcasting from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal, is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit, we rely on public donations. We request your support in continuing our service. When making a charitable donation, please keep the SCNCRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029. That's Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number at 1-844-709-5656. Your radio host star,
Marie Sanderson
and Val. And we're proud to serve you today. We're going to read the obits. Death notices, Cumberland County. Ruth K. Trizzle, 83 of Fayetteville, Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Robert L. Bridges, 66 of Stedman, Butler Funeral Home, Stedman. James D. Jimmy Brooklyn, 72 of Fayetteville, Atcott Funeral Home and Crematory. Eleanor Safrat Robinson, 86 of Fayetteville, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Maddie Lee Purdy, 84 of Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. Andre Jones, 79 of Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. From the Cape Fear region, it's Lee Hoffner, 71 of Holly Springs, formerly of Laurenburg, Richmond Bowles Funeral Service. David McDowell Jr., 39 of Pittsburgh, Virginia, Wiseman Mortuary. Vanessa Heron, 59, of Laurinburg, Purcell Funeral Home. Today's funerals are retired Master Sergeant Lowell Chambly of Roseboro, 2 p.m. Elizabeth Baptist Church, Roseboro, Burial Church Cemetery, Butler Funeral Home, Roseboro. Jimmy Cardell of Fayetteville, 11 a.m. Cumberland Mortuary Gardens, Fayetteville Blayton Gaskin Funeral Home, Elizabethtown. Christine Carthrin of Rayford, 1 p.m. Rayford First Baptist Church, Burial Rayford Cemetery, Crumpler Funeral Home, Rayford. In Cumberland County, James D. Melvin Jr., Mr. James D. Daniel Melvin Jr., 85, of Fayetteville, passed away Thursday, July 5th, 2018, at his home. Funeral services will be held at 2 p.m. Monday, July 9th, at Beaver Dam Baptist Church, 4693 Beaver Dam Church Road, Roseboro, with the Reverend Robert James officiatory. Burial will follow in Church Cemetery. The family will receive friends from 1 to 1:45 p.m. Monday prior to the service, and other times at the home. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to First Baptist Church, 201 Anderson Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina, or Beaver Dam Baptist Church, 4693 Beaver Dam Church Road, Roseboro. Butler Funeral Home, Roseboro, is proudly to serve the family. Vera B. King, Fayetteville. Vera B. King, 91, of Fayetteville, died Wednesday, July 4th. Graveside, Sunday, 5 p.m. Lafayette Memorial Park, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Rodney Earl Sandlin, Fayetteville. Rodney Earl Sandlin, 61, of Fayetteville, died Thursday, July 5th, 2018. Funeral Thursday, 11 a.m. Rogers and Brees Funeral Home Chapel. Visitation, Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Monday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Burial, Lafayette Memorial Park Cemetery, Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Regional and elsewhere, Laurel E. Shabby, Roseboro, retired Master Sergeant Laurel Eugene Shabley, 83, passed away Monday, July the 2nd, 2018. The funeral services will be held today at 2 p.m. Saturday, July the 7th, at Elizabeth Missionary Baptist Church, 1481 Fleet Copper Road, Roseboro, with the Reverend John Hobbs officiating. Burial with full military honors will follow the church ceremony. Butler Funeral Home and Roseboro. Arthur Lee Seals, Seattle, Washington. Arthur Lee Seals, 54, of Seattle, Washington, died Sunday, June 17, 2018. Funeral Saturday, 2 p.m. Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church. Viewing, Wiseman Mortuary, Saturday, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Burial, Cumberland Memorial Garden Wiseman Mortuary. Rodney Dwayne Fryer, Reno, Nevada. Rodney Dwayne Fryer, 45, of Reno, Nevada, died Tuesday, June 26, 2018. Funeral Saturday, 11 a.m. Kingdom Connection Ministries. Kingdom Connections Ministries viewing at the church Saturday at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Burial Northside Wiseman Mortuary. And finally, Gladys Cooper James, Red Spring. Gladys Cooper James, 72, of Red Springs, died Thursday, July 5th, 2018. Funeral Sunday, 3 p.m. Mount Zion Pentecostal Church. Visitation will be at the church Saturday at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Burial Mount Zion Pentecostal Church Cemetery. Richard Burroughs Funeral Services.
Borough not expected to direct.
Billy Graham. Sorry.
Parents must be in tune with God to set good examples for their children. Question. We are first-time parents and have not really been churchgoers. We would like to have our infant daughter Christian and start her life on a good note. What is the best kind of church to go to for this special event? Answer. It is commendable for parents to want to establish their child's life in the church. More critical than having a child Christian is for parents to commit to raising their children according to the Word of God. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's Proverbs 22:6. How can parents train their children if they don't also train themselves in the truth of the gospel and live by its provisions and instructions? Receive the Savior and He will equip you daily as you provide the spiritual home and foundation for your child needs to grow physically, intellectually, and most importantly, spiritually. Pray for guidance in finding a church home where the Bible is preached and where Christ is exalted. Children desperately need the guidance of parents. Set an example of consistency. It is important for moms and dads to be firm and fair, and above all, to discipline in a spirit of love. Be an example in word and deed, and be consistent in your walk with Christ.
All right. Billy Graham. Okay, this is Dear Abby. Romantic wedding dreams, dim tug-of-war marriage. Let's hear what Miss Dear Abby. We got that question, Miss Dear. Dear Abby, my boyfriend Pierre and I have been a couple for 18 months. We moved in together 3 months ago. The trouble is Pierre is French and he doesn't believe in marriage. He says it is an outdated institution and a social construct. He also claims that no one in France gets married. My parents are very religious and they do not support us living in sin. They say if he has a child out of wedlock, they will cut me off completely. What should I do? I love my family, but I also love Pierre. And I've always dreamed of having a romantic wedding with my father walking me down the aisle. I know Pierre is committed to me, but he dislikes the institution of marriage and won't budge on this. I'm 34 and my biological clock is ticking. Any advice will be appreciated. Conflict in California. Well, let's see what what she's going to say. Dear Conflict, Pierre has given you fair warning, and so have your parents. Marriage exists in France, just as it does here in the USA. That Pierre doesn't believe in it should be an indication that the two of you have very different definitions of what a committed relationship is, and it may be pretty cultural in nature. I think it's sad that the parents of a 34-year-old woman would threaten to cut off if she decides to have a child without being married. If you can't support one, that choice should be yours. If you can support one, that choice should be yours. My advice is to stop dreaming about a romantic wedding with your father walking you down the aisle unless you can find a man with a different view of commitment than Pierre appears to have. P.S. I once had a poodle named Pierre. He and I got along fine, and marriage was never discussed. I don't know. What do you think? You want to read the horoscope? Yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes we answer our own questions, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Horoscope. Cancer. A little research uncovers certain key information and points you in the right direction. You can address problems as they arise. Leo, you may be met with objections as you share your plans. Don't let the naysayers keep you from doing what you know in your heart to be right. You may have to sever ties with someone close to you, but only temporary. What happens after dark gives you much food for thought. Libra, you may be asked to fall in line and do precisely what you are told, but that's not for you. Rather, you must follow your heart. Scorpio, your respect for someone who continually shows you how things should be done allows you to see things in the proper perspective today. Sagittarius, you are further from your intended destination today than you were yesterday, and you must identify a reason. Questions demand answers. Capricorn, in trying to approach a situation in particular terms, you may be misunderstood by someone who is being far more emotional about it all. Aquarius, you cannot stop a thing today before it has reached its maturity. You must be willing to go the distance and follow where it will lead. Pisces, your admiration for someone who is doing what you would like to be doing can either cause frustration or offer inspiration. Which will it be? Aries, you have far more control over yourself and your affairs today than you had anticipated, and a certain firm decision can be made. Taurus, you are surprised to learn that someone has been keeping his or her eye on you all this time. Methods and motives are combined effectively. Gemini, after seeing someone do all that can be done today, you'll want to go and do your homework in preparation for tomorrow. You must be ready.
I'm a Gemini Taurus, so both of them apply. Okay, and support group. Saturday, Sexual Addiction Anonymous. To find meeting times and location, call 800-477-8191. Tar Heart Community Recovery Program, 7 to 8 p.m., 138 North Main Street, Rayford. Drug and alcohol dependency. Their number is 848-1872. Overeaters Anonymous, 8:45 to 9:45 a.m., 3rd floor, Auditorium, Veterans Affairs Medical Center. And Alcohol Anonymous, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., women, noon and 2, 5:30, 8:11 p.m. That's at 626 Sandalwood Drive. 10 a.m. women, noon, 5:30, and 7 p.m. at 604 German Street. 10 a.m. 11 North Bragg Boulevard, Spring Lake, noon, 7 p.m. at 1601 Rayford Road, 6 p.m. and at 401 East 1st Street, Lumberton, it's at 7 p.m. At 3203 Ramsey Street, it's at 8 p.m. and and this is I guess a military. This is going to be MT building, I guess, MT 2357 Quartermasters, Fort Bragg. That's going to be at 8 p.m. At 400 Prospect Road and Pembroke, they have a hotline, and it's 678 8733 or 678-8003. Alcohol Anonymous at 8 p.m. at the M Building, M 2357 Quartermasters and Logistics at Fort Bragg. And then you have the number for that is 261-2751. And finally, Narcotics Anonymous. To find weekly meeting times and locations, call 866-418-9500 or go to crna.org.
Borough not expected to threaten region. The hurricane season is beginning to pick up as second named storm of the year has developed in the Atlantic Ocean, while a tropical depression with the potential to develop into a third storm is hanging around off the coast of North and South Carolina. Hurricane Beryl was a Category 1 storm as of Friday afternoon and tracking westward toward the Caribbean Sea, according to the National Hurricane Center. It is expected to move on a westward path and not be a threat to move up the Atlantic coast. It doesn't appear to have at this point any significant impact, said Terry Hudgens, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Raleigh. It will move into the Central Caribbean by Tuesday and die out. The tropical depression, which was about 230 miles southeast of Cape Hatteras, is another story. Late Friday, sustained winds were clocked at 30 miles per hour. It should stay offshore at least through Monday, although Gradual strengthening is expected, the forecast said. Should it strengthen or begin moving, Hudgens said it could pose a threat to the coast, but only bring showers and thunderstorms to the Cape Fear region. With the hurricane season expected to pick up later this summer, here are three things to know. Is this early for a named storm? Is the season now likely to get more active? The hurricane season is June the 1st to November the 30th, but the peak is August through September or early October. Hodgins said it's not unusual to have the storms to develop this early, but look for more later in the summer and early fall. Hurricanes are graded using the Stafford Simpson wind scale with a category 1 considered the weakest, with winds reaching 74 miles per hour. Hudgens said the strongest storm, a category 5, has sustained winds of 156 miles per hour or more. What are 4 key things to have on hand if a hurricane hits? A cell phone that is charged and can be used to track updates on a storm, keeping residents informed as to any change in its path as well as strengthening or weakening. Non-perishable foods that can be easily fixed. Consider things like peanut butter, crackers, bread, and canned foods. Be sure to have plenty of water on hand. A battery-powered light, either a flashlight or an electric lamp. Make sure there are extra batteries on hand. Be alert to the possibility of flooding. A lesson learned by many in 2016 when Hurricane Matthew, a Category 1 storm, dumped 15 inches of rain in Fayetteville and Cumberland County, washing away roads and bridges and damaging or destroying homes. The 74-mile-per-hour winds toppled trees, creating additional hazards.
Okay. Ratepayers could see $5 billion, dollars in coal ash cleanup bill. Okay. Raleigh. A string of decisions by the North Carolina regulations means electricity customers could be seeing a multi-billion-dollar bill to clean up mountains of waste Duke Energy created by sending decade burning coal to produce power. State utility regulators late last month decided that both North Carolina Division of Counties number 2 power company could change ratepayers. Ratepayers the first $778 million chunk of a cleanup project to cost about $5 billion. Cleanup became a priority after a major leak from a Duke Energy site in 2014 left coal ash coating 70 miles of the Dan River on the North Carolina-Virginia border, and the waste byproduct contained toxin metal like lead, mercury, and arsenic. The company pled guilty to federal environmental crimes in 2015 for a coal ash handling and thus admitting previous system. He's going to court to try stopping Duke Energy from passing along its costs to excavate some ash pits and cover others. Corporate mismanagement increased costs that shareholders could also be forced to bear, he said in an interview. Duke Energy said that it followed industry practices and applicable regulations. This case will uniquely be decided by the North Carolina Supreme Court, Stein said. A decision by the state's highest court isn't likely before next year, when 3.4 million North Carolina power companies finally learn if they are on the hook for the bill that's been accumulating for decades. Decisions by the North Carolina Utility Commissions last month and in February largely agreed with Duke Energy's argument that customers should pay for cleanup as a part of the bill for the affordable, consistent electricity that burning coal had long provided. It marks one of the Commissioner's most controversial regulations decisions of recent years, but the for passing on coal ash costs was set last year prior to the Duke Energy's decision in a case involving Virginia-based Dominion Energy, which serves North Carolina northeastern corner, said Don Bailey, who served 4 years on the commission's last year. Dominion's decision about a year ago may have been some indication of what was going to take place in the Duke hearings. Bailey said it wasn't anywhere near the kind of money where we are talking about now. The two utilities commissions decided Stein promised to challenge involved Duke Energy, two North Carolina subsidiaries. The companies Duke Energy Carolina subsidiary, which operates in central and western North Carolina, could charge its customers the $546 million in coal ash cleanup costs occurring from 2015 to 2017. The commission decided June 22nd. But the regulators also found fault with Duke Energy's practice and assessed a $70 million mismanagement penalty. The company's irresponsible management of its ash pits has resulted in a cost increase greater than those necessary to acquire, maintaining, and operating its facilities, commissioners wrote. Still, customers will pay about $476 million of the cleanup costs, and the company's shareholders are about 13% of the subsidy bill so far. In February, the Utilities Commission allowed the company's Duke Energy Progress Operation subsidiary, which served eastern North Carolina and Asheville area, to charge customers $232 million for coal ash cleanup costs racked up already. Regulators spontaneously assessed the company a $30 million mismanagement penalty. North Carolina is Duke Energy's most important territory. The company has 7.6 million customers spread over several states, including South Carolina, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. And I am one of those customers. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We are broadcasting from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signals carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our service. We're making a charitable donation. Please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number at 1-844-709-5656. Your radio host star,
Marie Sanderson
and Val, and we're proud to serve you today.
U.S.-China slap big tariffs on each other. Shanghai. The hefty tariffs that the United States and China slapped on each other's exports Friday intensified a trade battle that has a strong risk of escalating or dragging on, chilling confidence, rolling financial markets, and potentially seriously harming the border economy. There was no indication of new talks between the two sides as tens of billions of dollars of new taxes on trade took effect. The U.S. agricultural sector has a particularly large stake at risk after President Donald Trump followed through on his threat to apply 25% levies on $34 billion of Chinese products, mostly machinery and industrial parts. Belgium accused the United States of launching the largest trade war in economic history and fired back with dollar-for-dollar tariffs mainly on American farm products and other foods. Soybeans topped the list and illustrated how deeply U.S. and Chinese producers and consumers have come to depend on each other. Some ships from the Pacific Northwest bound for China with tons of soybeans have already been rerouted to Europe or Southeast Asia, analysts here said. Chinese officials, meanwhile, have been pulling out all the stops to encourage domestic farmers to plant more soybeans. So far, with mixed results. China needs soybeans and the U.S. needs the Chinese market, said Jiang Bohing, an analyst with Luzhong Futures Company. In eastern China's Shandong province, it's a lose-lose situation. On the whole, the tariffs and retaliatory tariffs amount to penalties totaling $17 billion, a tiny amount given the size of the two economies, which have a combined gross domestic product of roughly $30 trillion. Nonetheless, the duties will hurt sales and disrupt supply chains for some industries and businesses. More worthy son, the latest actions and the increasingly heated rhetoric from both sides have raised alarms of a drawn out fight that could take a toll on both economies and spill over to the rest of the world. The U.S. and China are the two largest economies in the world and have periodically had trade clashes. But Trump and hardliners in his administration are insisting that Beijing paid for years of what they see as unfairly taking advantage of America's open markets and know-how. China's tariffs are targeting agricultural and food products including grains, tobacco, and whiskey, products largely from states that back Trump and home to influential GOP lawmakers. The U.S. duties are aimed at hitting China's supply chain and intermediate parts supporting the country's high-tech manufacturing. U.S. businesses and congressional Republicans have increasingly urged Trump to back away from applying broad-based tariffs, calling instead for negotiations and enlisting the help of other trading partners to put pressure on Beijing. Trump, however, has alienated America's closest allies such as Canada and the European Union by assessing tariffs on steel and threatening to tax imported cars. The president has made punitive duties or the threat of them his instrument of choice to tackle America's trade deficits and force Beijing to open markets and abandon policies such as requiring foreign firms to form joint ventures and essentially hand over technology secrets to do business in China. On Thursday, Trump threatened to slap duties on all $500 billion of goods imported from China. Chinese officials have repeatedly vowed that they will stand firm and take comprehensive measures to protect the interests of China and its people. And Chinese President Xi Jinping and others have sought to woe European and other countries to back Beijing's push against what it sees as Trump's unilateral protectionism. I think the Chinese are digging in for what they see as a protracted battle with the U.S., said David Lovinger, an analyst for TCW Emerging Markets Group in Los Angeles and formerly a senior Treasury Department official for China Affairs. Lovinger, who was in China the last 2 weeks, gauging the thinking and mood of businesses and government officials, said it was clear that the trade fight had awakened the Chinese to the country's dependency on the U.S. as a supplier, market, and banker that leaves them too vulnerable. The result, he and others said, is that China has begun to accelerate efforts to build up domestic capabilities and to diversify where China buys its products. It would be a mistake for American companies to think they're the unique providers of goods and services, says Kenneth Jarrett, president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. Although China has been rebalancing its economy and today is much less dependent on trade, the country still counts on the U.S. and other foreign countries for critical components and technologies. Trump is betting that he has the upper hand in a trade fight with China because the United States buys or imports nearly 4 times as much in products from China as it exports to the Asian country. But the reality is more complex. Over the last 3 decades, the two economies have become interconnected, with many American firms dependent on China's supply chains and large domestic markets. Soybeans provide a prime example. U.S. farmers shipped about $14 billion worth of soybeans to China last year, accounting for more than half of their global exports. American soybeans, in turn, made up about 30% of China's total soybean consumption. As valuable as China's market is for the U.S., American soybeans have helped fill China's vital need for the grain used for animal feed and for oil and human consumption. A Chinese saying goes, "Take a day without meat, but not a day without beans." But starting Friday, U.S. soybeans entering China face an extra 25% tariff on top of the 3% duty assessed on all imported soybeans. The threat of tariffs already has cost American farmers as soybean prices have fallen and Chinese orders have virtually stopped in recent weeks. Instead, China has been buying more from Brazil and Argentina, among other sources. And on July the 1st, Belgium dropped the 3% duty for soybean imports from Bangladesh, India, Laos, South Korea, and Sri Lanka to encourage those countries to export more to China.
Spring Lake Board meeting canceled. Spring Lake Monday regular scheduled meeting of the Spring Lake Board of Aldermen has been canceled. The board's next regular scheduled meeting is set for 7 p.m. July 23rd at the Spring Lake Municipal Building, 300 Roof Street. Lee shooting suspect faces murder charge. Sanford. A Sanford man shot in June died late Thursday from his injuries, and his neighbor is now charged with first-degree murder. The Lee County Sheriff Office said. Billy Craig Carter, 47, of the 200 block of Family Farm Lane was shot June 19th after arguing with Mark Patterson, who is alive on Friday. Family Farm Lane. The shooting happened at Patterson's home. Patterson initially was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury with intent to kill, and was released on bail, Sheriff Office release said. He was arrested at his home at 1:14 a.m. Friday, the release said. An autopsy is scheduled Monday through Friday of the chief medical examiner in Raleigh, the release said. Patterson is being held without bond in Lee County Jail. And NY men, New York men charged with credit card scam. A call about a credit card use in Fayetteville's motel resulted in the arrest of 2 New York men and the seize of other bogus cards and a scamming device. Jonathan Holmes, 24 of Brooklyn, and Moses Peter Joffrey, 23 of Bronx, were charged Friday with possession of financial transaction card forgery devices, receiving encoded information, and conspiring. The Fayetteville police were called Thursday at the Red Roof Inn on Cedar Creek Road after receiving a report that a man had used a clone transaction card to pay their room bill of $63.33, according to arrest documents in Cumberland County Magistrate's Office. The card belonged to a man who told police his bank had contacted him about the transaction, documents said, and that he had his card in his pocket. The man said that he did not know Holmes or Jeffrey and had not authorized the use of the card. Police obtained a search warrant for the motel room and the rental vehicle that Holmes and Jeffrey were using. They discovered 21 credit and gift cards, 63 cartoon, and 104 individual packs of cigarettes and receipts for the purchases. Holmes told police that he had rented the vehicle, but the rental agreement was in the name of someone else. Holmes would not identify the person to the police. Police also seized credit card devices from Jeffers along with 9 Visa cards found in his pants pocket. Bail was set for each of $5,000. I'm surprised that it's that little amount, $5,000 for all of that.
Should have been higher.
Yeah.
This is your library. Design workshop is Tuesday at West Regional. The library opens windows to the world by encouraging expression, enlightenment, and exploration. Take a moment to look around you. How many graphical design items do you see? Around me I see 50 plus items. Everything from greeting cards, book covers, water bottle labels to the Spider-Man theme tissue box on my desk. It's safe to say design is everywhere. Good design exudes a positive perception while bad design projects a negative one. Unfortunately, we live in a visual society where image matters and perception is key. For example, if you were presented with a beautiful, well-designed flyer and a poorly designed flyer, which event would you attend? Odds are most people will attend the event advertised on the well-designed flyer. Why? Because like a picture, a design can speak 1,000 words. Designs provide us with lots of nonverbal information that helps us make decisions on products and services we purchase, and which print and digital advertisements we give attention. It helps us to organize information to make various elements stand out, such as important facts, phrases, concepts, presentation, reports, or sales pitches. When it comes to perception, a well-designed flyer radiates positive thoughts about your event. It says that your event is organized and carefully planned, and it shows that you're putting your best marketing foot forward. In contrast, bad design radiates negative thoughts. Your event could be perceived as unorganized, unplanned, and maybe not worth the viewer's time or energy to attend. Bad design can lower attendance and sales, and overall cause people to not take you or your business seriously. Marketing is imperative in building your personal and professional brand, and good design is critical to your success, whether you're branding yourself or your business. Good design is hard to come by. Hiring a graphic designer isn't always cost effective. You might say, I'm not creative, or I don't have the time to learn graphic design. Trust me, you are creative. You just don't know it yet. Thanks to Canva, a free online program with easy to use drag and to drop features and DIY design templates, you have access to a library of graphics, photos, and fonts that makes it easy for beginners and professionals and fonts that make it easy for beginners and professionals to create quality designs for web and print. Canva is great for creating designs for social media posts, flyers, invitations, proposals, logos, and marketing materials. If you want to learn how to create your own stunning designs for business or for play, come to the library's program. Create beautiful designs with Canva on Tuesday at 10 a.m. at West Regional Branch Library, 7469 Central Circle in Fayetteville. Gain access to over 1 million photographs, graphics, and fonts to create high-quality graphic design projects for any use, business, or personal. Attendees need to have intermediate computer skills and possess an accessible email account prior to the program. Space is limited, so registration is required. Register online at cumberland.lib.nc.us or call 487-0440. That again is cumberland.lib.nc.us, and the telephone number is 487-0440.
Okay. Fourth was a grand party. Tropical storm season is here. Put my glasses on. Merit. For a host of the independence celebrations that were held across this region, with thousands of people who took part in them, helping our country celebrate its 242nd birthday. The biggest of the bunch was the 4th of July celebration at Fort Bragg, which this year drew as many as 50,000 people from an afternoon to evening headlining by country singer Tracy Atkins and the Post usually spectacular fireworks display. There were food, drinks, and drop-in an Army Golden Knight parachuting team, games for the kids, and lots of music. Hope Meal Celebration is the first 4th of July in the year, with its nearly refilled lake, which has been missing for far too long. Other communities with special Independence Day celebrations, including Pinehurst, Littleton, White Lake, Aberdeen, Clinton, and Parkton. In a community that is known for lots about patriotism, the 4th gets celebrated with proper style. Okay, let me take this if you two do it. Yeah, go ahead.
No way to block Trump nominee. As President Trump prepares to announce his replacement for retired Supreme Court Justice Anthony M. Kennedy, Democrats are desperate to block the president's nominee, but are powerless to do so. They have no one to blame but themselves. Let's take a moment to recall the sordid 15-year history of Democratic miscalculations that brought them to this point. The Democrats' first mistake was to launch unprecedented filibusters against President George W. Bush appellate court nominees, starting with his 2001 nomination of Miguel Estrada for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. The D.C. Circuit is considered the country's second most important court, having produced more Supreme Court justices than any other federal court. Estrada was a supremely qualified nominee who had the support of a clear majority in the Senate His confirmation should have been easy, but Democrats killed his nomination. Why? According to internal strategy memos obtained by the Wall Street Journal, they blocked Estrada at the request of liberal interest groups who said Estrada was especially dangerous because he is Latino and the White House seems to be grooming him for a Supreme Court appointment. Democrats did not want Republicans to put the first Hispanic on the Supreme Court. Instead, 2 years after his nomination, they made Estrada the first appeals court nominee in history to be successfully filibustered. It was an extraordinary breach of precedent. They did not stop with Estrada. Democrats also filibustered 9 of the Bush Circuit Court nominees, all of whom had majority support in the Senate. It was, as columnist Robert Novick wrote at the time, the first full-scale effort in American history to prevent a president from picking the federal judges he wants. The Democrats' second big mistake was using the nuclear option to pack the federal circuit courts with liberal judges. After Democrats won control of the Senate and the White House, they set about trying to fill court vacancies, particularly on the D.C. circuit.